Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I thought, do I have my volume right there? Let me just see. Testing. Yeah, there we go. Thought we'd crank out a quick podcast here tonight. And it's 11:04 p.m., Monday the 14th of July. Yeah, had my birthday. Very nice time with all the grandkids here. And getting ready for this house build now. So, yeah, everything's just going pretty sweet, man. Pretty sweet. And I'm very happy. Very happy. Very content. Had a big load of material come in today from the hardware store. And, this house is going to be a brilliant melding of old world technology, like earth-based building with cob, and modern construction like a steel frame and things like that, or galvanized steel pipe, steel tubing, square tubing, 2x2. And it's just going to be a super strong, super durable house, and going to be a lot of fun to build. And yeah, not quite sure what I want to talk about tonight. A lot of things on my mind these days. I think a lot of what I would call the grim reportage, the grim reporting, is done. I will be repeating it and referencing it as I go through, the Talamanca review. It's kind of my my hallmark, if you will. And yeah, at the risk of sounding almost evangelical, I wanna talk a little bit about faith and purpose and love and true sacrifice. Now, on the way toward self, the true self, the primal self, you have to have faith that this part of you that connects to everything exists. And I myself don't believe in pure faith. I think, one moment, this cold just will not go away. I thought I was going to sneeze there. No. I find pure faith to be a tenuous concept. I think as human beings, we have the right for some measure of evidence and proof that this larger cosmology beyond the physical exists. You know? I find that a lot of the problems that we have are really, they're semantic. They're rooted in language and programming. Because words can be turned on us. You know, words which were always good and beautiful in the past can be turned into things that are very ugly. You know, it all depends on your perspective. So if I say the word God, and you're looking at it from the perspective of how somebody like Yogananda, the guy who wrote Biography of a Yoga, which introduced high Vedic self-realization practices, different than the low-form yoga that Sadhguru practices. That Kundalini stuff and all that psychic chakra stuff, that's like the Indian New Age. I would stay away from that stuff. That's just me, though. I mean, I have many friends that are deep into it, years and decades into it. I don't say anything. Not my place. But on my podcast, it's, I have to give you my honest opinion about things. It's a form of reporting, a form of op-ed here. So, and I know that a lot of you have come to value what I say and my opinion on things. And I hold that as a sacred trust, so I don't want to mislead or misdirect. I want to be direct. I want to be honest. The field of consciousness is absolutely fascinating. You could spend your entire life just in the astral. It's like a huge dimension and full of things and all kinds of little power trips and power games and magics and entities and spirits and ancient things and things unknown on the earth. And it's fascinating. And the occult and the astral are really the same thing. The occult is all about the astral. I would say with very few exceptions, as in the case of, certain truly holy rabbis and truly saintly people of contemplative or monastic tradition in the Catholic Church. I'd say at an institutional level and at a power and political level, those two religions are just occult astral now and centered and aligned with certain races, whether they be reptilian or Anunnaki or Nordic Palladian, right? They're all mixed up in those religions, and it's all just a bunch of astral nonsense. But the astral is a deceptive plane, right? And if you don't know this cosmology, if nobody teaches it to you, if you don't do your own research and study, if you don't do a kind of around-the-world exploration of Scripture, you're not going to come up with a cosmology, and the cosmology is important. You have to know it. You'll experience it in your contemplative life, but it's good to have a mental template. It's good to understand how it all goes together, right? And everybody needs to be taught these things, but how are you going to teach people these things in a time and a place where everything is about studying things that are going to make you money and help you buy a house and raise a family? And there's nothing wrong with those things. It's just that it's an irony of our time. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's so many things that I put into the category of this ironic mirror that we live in, where when you look at something, it should be a lot better in 2025 than it was 100 years ago, but it's worse. If you look at it simply from the point of having a home that you call your own and nobody can evict you from it, having a little bit of land to work so you can grow food for your family, having a well, having a community and a village, and being able to raise 2, 3, 4 children, some people might call that the ideal life. I'd say it's a pretty good life, right? But the magicians, they wanted to take us on this great scientific, magical manifestation journey. And they can't do it without our consent. And unfortunately, we've by and large bought into it. And we're getting very close now to a point of no return where the trial is over, and the refund time is over, and the return time is over. When you buy something, a fridge or a stove, and you got 30 days to return it if you don't like it or if something breaks. We're getting pretty close to that. You can't return it anymore point in this scientific, technocratic wasteland that they're trying to develop. Okay, I mean, we're right on the 2-yard line now, right? To use a football metaphor. And it's a bit scary. I don't care who you are. You can be a fully realized spiritual master. This is a slightly daunting time to be alive. Right? There's just so much at stake. And nobody really knows how it's all going to work out. Right? We got a gun to our head with all of these magical societies. This is what the Temple of Solomon is about. And I have to break the habit of constantly blaming this just on our Jewish brothers and sisters in humanity. It's not just them. Okay? It's not just them. In fact, they've just been chosen or selected either with or without their consent, is what I'm trying to say. And they've been selected to push forward a global agenda. And that global agenda is to start a war. And that's what, Bill Cooper was right about this. He said the Jewish people and the Israel Project was created for the sole purpose of bringing about the war of Armageddon. And you tell these people, and there's so many ways you say the same things, and I don't know why it's so hard for people to get these things. I don't know why cognitive apprehension and cognitive lucidity is so difficult now. Yes, you could say it's easy for me to say that. I live in a very calm place. I have lots of time to reflect, contemplate, think, perceive, meditate. I get that. I live in a privileged state right now. I totally get that. But I earned this. I created it. I chose this. I built it. Okay, it's not an accident I'm here. It's, I'm not living from a silver spoon or a trust fund. I built all of this. I built my independence so that I could contemplate life properly. And this is really the crux of what it is that I'm trying to say. They don't want a world that has people like me in it anymore. They want everybody in this system they're building. 2-3 years ago when they were talking about digital ID and everything, I used to say on Jimmy Jean's show, Into the Microcosm, all the time, you guys are crazy. That's never going to come about. You only think that way because you live in the first world. If you were to come down to Central America, where most of my neighbors don't even have bank accounts, you'd see how ludicrous that is. But I'll tell you what they all do have here, bank account or no bank account, they all have smartphones. They all have an Android or an iOS phone. And you can have a bank account on a phone now. And as currency becomes more and more digital, I think about this, and Bob and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't have any great trepidation about the digital age that's coming in. You see, and this ties into why I recommended people vote for Trump. Because I've thought this through more than probably anyone you know. I've thought this through. Okay? I've thought through all of the permutations of this. I've thought this through like Caesar meditating on war maps in his tent all night before a battle. I've thought this through. And I came to the realization, and a lot of this thinking process was forced upon me by my hesitation to publish The Light of Darkness, because I literally thought at the time in 2020 it was too dark of a book to publish. And then I started to contemplate it. And I realized that the only way we're going to get out of this, and we're going to have a chance of surviving as an independent and free human race. And we're not talking about societies anymore. We're not talking about Canadians or Americans or Japanese anymore or Chinese. We're talking about the human race now. Because the Western world is going dark now. It's going dictatorial, tyrannical dark. You need to see this. You need to realize it's not just Kim Jong-un anymore. It's, what's her name there? Angela von Ursels, or whatever her name is, the head of the European Union. She's a Kim Jong-un figure. Listen very carefully to what he's saying. Listen very carefully to what the WEF is saying. It's all basically, at the end of the day, the Black Cube cult, the Black Star cult, the Hexagon people, right? The Saturnian cults. This is their heyday, I suppose. This is the rise of their power in the astrological cycle. No doubt about it. They're rising with alarming force, but the thing about human beings and human populations is it's very difficult to force anything on anybody. And they realized a long time ago, rather than have continual fighting every generation, it's better to get some sense of consent. Okay? Now, the way they've chosen to get consent now, quite frankly, to use a classic, slightly crass Bruce McDonald Talamanca Review metaphor, they break us the way pimps break women. They just feed them drugs. How do you think a pimp keeps a woman in line? He gets her high all the time, gets her addicted on drugs, and he's always got the drugs. You got to go back to Big Daddy to get that fix. And then once you're high, you're back on the street sucking cock. Okay? And it seems to me that the model of governance and consent that they've used to get us this far is that of the pimp. Okay? All you got to do is watch some of these videos, man, on YouTube about the drug-free zones in Portland, in Los Angeles, in Vancouver, in Toronto, in Baltimore, in Pittsburgh. It's unbelievable what's happening in the Western world. And you still have these fucking idiots. This is what I don't understand. I don't understand how you could see your world collapsing around you and still be worried about the third world or the second world or women's reproductive rights in such and such a country. I don't understand how this liberal agenda is moving forward. Now, I have a theory. I'm kind of hesitant to give it because every time I bring this topic up, I get a strong backlash from a number of my listeners. Not a huge number, but 3 or 4. But it's very pointed, and they take the time to write me a long message, like several hundred words. Okay? So without any further ado, I'll end the suspense. I'm talking about the generations again. Okay? I'm talking about the baby boomers. I'm talking about Gen X. I'm talking about millennials. And I'm talking about Gen Z. Okay? It seems to me these liberals barring the Gen Z people who are just kind of lost, actually. I mean, that's not liberalism. They're actually revolutionary. And I understand why they're revolutionary. You know, I had an epiphany last week as well. I'm not sure if I shared it with you already on an earlier podcast. or whether I was just talking about it out loud with somebody, maybe Bob. But, when you look at the transgenders, I'll get back to the generational thing in a second, but I just want to make this point. When you look at the transgender thing, don't necessarily see it as a group of entitled young people who think they can do whatever they want in a mutated culture of radical individuality. Because you're going to get angry if you look at it that way. The correct way to look at it is that these kids in this generation are the product of like 3 generations of chemical mutation in our food, in our water, in our pharmakia, in everything. Okay? We've got more chemicals in our body now, and plastics, quite frankly, which I guess you could say is a chemical, but I feel I should single that particular one out on its own, the plastic levels in our body. But there's all kinds of scientific reasons for this gender dysphoria. It's not a rebellion against Jesus or the church or Orthodox Judaism or any of this stuff. Is it done by design? I can't say for sure, but I can't ignore the fact that there seems to be a lot of evidence for it. And most of it, quite frankly, is in the Talmud. Okay? So it seems to me as though something has been working on this society, on this system, at a very subtle level for 75, 80 years to transform us into the people that we've become. And now we're at a generational level, we're turning on each other now. What I was going to say earlier about the generations is that the liberal mindset is like a baby boomer in 1995, a baby boomer in their 40s. That's what it is. And they don't seem to comprehend how much the world has changed. Okay? There should be no foreign aid leaving Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States. All of the money should be staying in those countries now because those countries are in such a state of disrepair. Okay? Now, everything that's going on is going on by design. But I've explained countless times to you folks, countless times, but as I said in my last podcast, I have to accept that repetition is a necessary component of the Talamanca Review. Because some of these concepts they're very subtle, and they take a while to grasp. But once you grasp them, once you see what I'm saying, you cannot and will not ever unsee it, which is why I keep repeating it. Number 1, there really is a creator. Now, as I say on my show all the time, it's not like anything you think it is. It's everywhere. It's everything and nothing at the same time. It's the totality of all of our realities is the expression of the Creator. But it is conscious. It is pure consciousness. And you can learn to interact with it. It's completely different than interacting with entities or some fucking entity called Bashar or all these fucking morons on Gaia, which this whole New Age thing is a big part of the distraction. It's a huge part of the distraction, okay? And the cultivation of the new man. This is the new religion that they want. This is the transhumanist religion. Hey, you're going to be psychic. You're going to know how to win the lottery. I mean, here's a little hint for you. If it appeals to your vanity, your ego, your self-interest, and your greed, it's not divine. Okay? The true divine path is sacrifice. It's true sacrifice. It's denying yourself for something larger. Okay? So there's nothing in all of this shit we've been fed, the Dolores Cannon, the Andrew Bartzis, Bashar, none of it is spiritual. And it isn't spiritual because it's just information. And if it doesn't open your heart, it's not spiritual. Okay? And that's, as much as I criticize the Christian religion, that's one thing I have to say about that path is it opens the heart. It's a heart-based path in its purest form. Okay? So we got all these crazy fucking baby boomers and all of these crazy fucking Gen Xers in their 50s, my generation, and 40s. And they just want to, you know, they're still thinking like we're like a special society and we have to help the world. We're the welfare fucking case now. And if you travel a little bit and you go and you look at this world, you'll see what I'm talking about. Right? This house that Bob and I are going to build, all done, is with patio space, anywhere you can put furniture, a sofa, and relax, whether it be a bedroom, the main living room, the center quad or courtyard of the hacienda. We're building a hacienda, a U-shaped, classical U-shaped hacienda. With all the square footage added together, it's going to be a little over 4,000 square feet, like just under 4,200 square feet. It's going to be a massive home. And it's not going to require, it's all in how you design the space. And in Costa Rica and in the tropics, when you're architecting a house, you design for interior and exterior living. And when I say exterior, like at least half of your life is lived outside at your home. Like when Bob and I want to have a chat, we don't sit here in the main house. We sit out front on the patio, right? Like Southern gentlemen in the 1930s in Mississippi, That's what you do in warm climates, is you sit outside. And all you need is a roof so that if it rains, you don't get rained on. Now, this 4,200 square foot house will probably, I can't say, and I don't want to jinx myself, but we're going to be able to build this thing for somewhere between 20 and 40,000. That's everything. Bathroom fixtures, kitchen, furniture, floors, everything. Everything. Okay? Everything. And you say, well, how do we do that? How is that even possible? Well, you build with earth and a little bit of other material like roof sheeting and stuff like that. And the life you can enjoy, and the life I enjoy now in the home I built, the life you can enjoy for a little bit of money is just mind-boggling when you consider what you can get for like $1 million in Vancouver, which would be a matchbox. That requires probably another $1 million in renovations. And I ask myself, like, why would anybody put themselves through the stress of doing that? I mean, if you're a gangster or you run some company that robs people, and most companies just rob people now. I'll give you the technocracy section of our economy is really just a government-sponsored monopoly at this point. Okay? I mean, Amazon probably doubled its net worth during COVID. And that was all by design. Okay? You look at Peter Thiel in with J.D. Vance and the Trump administration, dedicated contractor to the CIA and the military. Same thing with Elon Musk. I mean, what do you think is going on around you? Right? And it's the same in every country. It's not just the U.S. and Canada. Canada is coming apart faster than a suit tailored in Hong Kong in an alley. Canada is finished. They're literally going to eradicate the traditional culture of Canada, the white Christian base. Okay? They're doing it on purpose. If you say white replacement, they call you a conspiracy theorist and a white supremacist. But it's going on. So you're being gaslit. Right? And it's going on by this, and it's all, it's all these ceremonial magic elite kitty fuckers, child traffickers, child murderers, commiserating with extraterrestrial shitheel people. If we had any balls as a human race, we'd fucking kill them with machetes. But the human race has lost something. I don't know what it is. I do, actually. I already talked about it 10 minutes ago. It's that we've been pimped out. We got our drugs. I used to have an expression a number of years ago. I used to say to people, Bruce, do you think it's going to change? Do you think we're going to turn the tide? This is like 15 years ago. And I mean, I saw things going bad 20 years ago. More. I saw them going. The first time it really dawned on me we were in serious trouble was around 2002. And I just saw it. It opened up to me. It was like a spiritual revelation. And I just saw it. And I went, oh my God, this is really bad. I don't think we're going to be able to get out of this. And I thought about it. And people say to me, Bruce, do you think we're going to be able to get out of this? And I used to say to them, it's really difficult to mount a revolution or a counter-revolution in a society that has endless free pornography and Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Human beings are very simple creatures. And they know that. Whatever it is that's controlling us, they know that. The only thing that gives us dignity is the sincere pursuit of our higher consciousness. I'll avoid saying God there, although I'm comfortable with the word. That's it. Because it's too fucking hard. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to meditate an hour, 2 hours a day. There's TV to be watched. There's junk food to be eaten. There's shopping to be done. There's video games to be played. Nobody wants to sit around reading the Adith Granith, the Sikh holy book, or the Bible. It's not a great example, but you know what I mean. You can get something out of the Bible. Nobody wants to learn about themselves, right? And if you do, they've got that covered already, as I told you. With all these phonies out there running their little businesses, small little boutique $1 million a year consulting and reading companies, Kajik record readers and master psychics. And, every scripture in the world says stay away from those people. They're evil, and they'll bring evil into your life. Okay, and based on what I experienced working with them, it's true. It's absolutely true. I'm living testimony. I'm giving you the testimony. Thou shalt not bear false witness. I'm not bearing false witness. I'm giving you true testimony. All of that shit is dangerous. I'd say the only benefit it has is that it opens you up to the fact that this is a hologram. Because if they can hack it with psychic abilities, it proves that it's a hologram. And that's something that is valuable to have proven. But once you know it, it's like Sean Connery says to Kevin Costner when he's dying in The Untouchables. Okay, Capone's men killed me. He just grabs him. His last breath is, what are you prepared to do? Is my death meaningless? Are you going to take out Capone and the booze runners during Prohibition, or did I die for nothing? And that question is very apt to spiritual matters as well. What are you going to do about it? And watching this podcast is not spiritual practice. It might qualify as spiritual congregation, like getting together and talking about spiritual matters, which is a good thing to form community, but it's not spiritual practice. Okay? It is not. Right? There's going to be a lot of people who wish they listened to their hearts in the next 5, 10, 15 years. When the spell finally breaks and they realize what they've been under, they're going to say to themselves, why didn't I wake up 10, 15 years ago? It's going to be mind-boggling for them. So liberalism is caught in this Hillary Clinton time loop. That's why she's still a political figure. And everybody who's attracted to that woman, everybody's trying to bring something from the past back. The MAGA people are make America great again. Let's go back to that booming economy of the 80s. The Democrats are, let's go back to the dynamic world force we were in the mid-90s, shaping the world after we won the Cold War. You can't do it because we've been so irresponsible financially. And quite frankly, we've been looted in the West. And it's all been done by our own leaders. Our leaders in cahoots with outside forces, okay? We've been looted. We are being set up to be destroyed. We are, defilement, desecration, decimation. We are very, very close to decimation now. I'd say if you go back to the reference of all the lost people in the drug tent cities now in all the major North American cities. Like you don't see that stuff over here. You can see people on drugs and stuff, but you never gets that bad. Right? Why? I mean, this is supposed to be a second or a third world country in Central America, but you don't see that here. Why? Why are you seeing it in America, in Canada, in their biggest and most prosperous cities? Sprawling, massive tent cities of homeless people. Okay? And all the while, these countries are bringing in loads and loads and loads and loads of immigrants and giving them unprecedented financial aid packages. Unprecedented, thousands of dollars per person. While their own citizens are dying. And while those very governments are complicit in looking the other way as the fentanyl and all the other dangerous drugs come in. The tranq, the zombie drugs, all that crazy shit. It's all being done by our government, or they're allowing it to happen. And what they're doing is they're allowing you to choose to die. Okay? This is what I mean when I say that nothing can happen without our consent. You can't point the finger and say anybody did this to you. Oh, yeah, the Jews are behind all the pornography. Yeah? Don't watch it. Let them waste their money. Let them put millions of dollars into the server farms. And the easiest way to get back at them is to make sure their mission fails. Be morally stronger than that. They're allowed to tempt you. It's not outside the free will matrix. Why are you blaming them? Why are you blaming them? Oh, the Chinese are flooding fentanyl into the precursors for fentanyl into Mexico, and the cartels are sending it to North America. Why are you blaming them? Who the fuck is using it all? Are people having guns put to their head and, hey, buddy, take that fentanyl now or I'll blow your brains out? No. It's all being done by consent. How did we get this weak? How did we get this decrepit as a society? How did we not see this coming? I don't think any society has fallen in a manner like this in the history of empires. Yes, they get decadent, they get corrupt, but not like this. Not like this. This is some next level shit. That's the title of tonight's podcast. This is some next level shit. As soon as I say the title, I just know it's the title. I know that's like an intuitive thing. So if you're giving your consent and you're destroying yourself, you think you're going to have any excuses in your afterlife review? Oh, well, the Jews did this, and the Masons did this, and the Chinese did this, and yeah, you had a choice every step of the way. Nobody could put a gun to your head. You know? I'll conclude tonight with a personal story. I have an acquaintance over here. I would have called him a friend a month ago, but not anymore. He's been over here a long time. 35 years. He's an not professional or anything, but he's an ex-MMA fighter. And kind of a weird guy. He originally comes from Portland, Oregon. I think he came over here in 1990. made most of his living as a river raft guide. There's some pretty decent whitewater rafting in Costa Rica. Like there's 5 levels in the world of whitewater rafting. Like level 5 is some pretty serious shit. And we have level 4, and it can go to level 5 here in the rain season. A lot of people like to go rafting in the rain season, the real hardcore people, extreme sports people. And we have that here, and he did that. He got married, had a few kids, but has a huge drinking problem. And now he's in his early 60s. I first met him 2 years ago. He ended up on my mountain. He believed that his ex-wife's family, his aunt, had some land here that had been sitting idle for a while, and he had gotten her permission to maybe take a look at it and see if he could build a house on it. And he never ended up doing any of that, but in the course of pursuing it, he came up here and I met him. And then he told me his life story, and, at that time, a couple years ago, he had been kicked out of his home. His wife told him to leave. Pretty grim. I think her exact words was, "Just go, nobody loves you here." And he has 3 adult children. And so, yeah, the first time he came up here, he hung around about 3 weeks. He stayed with me for a while, fed him every day, 3 meals a day. And then he disappeared for a while, came back in even worse shape, and stayed for about 2 months that time. I fed him every day. And then I gave him a couple $100 when he wanted to leave the mountain. He didn't have bus fare or anything. And at that time, he told me he had work in another part of Costa Rica, and he'd pay me back. And he's back now, and he doesn't have my money, and he wants to work on Bob's house build, and I don't want him because I'm trying to lay down the law here with my own family. There's a few members of my family that have problems with addiction, and I've decided recently, and this is a more personal aspect of tonight's podcast, but my wife is a brilliant leader in this community, a brilliant matriarch. But there are failures in what she's capable of doing because she can't discipline people, right? So it's always a soft glove, like your mother. Oh, that's okay. Get back up on the horse. And, I'm like, my background, if you've read The Devil in Us, and, my upbringing. And I'm like, I'm trying to tell her, like, that doesn't always work. Sometimes you got to dangle people over the abyss and hope the bottomless pit frightens them, because that's the only thing that's going to change them. And I've started taking that approach. It was a long time to get to this point, but fortunately, my brothers-in-law were extremely consistent in the manner in which they screwed up and lent all the evidence to my position. And finally, my wife had to yield. So there's a couple members of the family that, have asked me to work on it's a couple months' work, right? But in a remote area like this, a couple months' work is a big deal, right? And they've come and they said, "Bruce, can I work on the house you're building with Bob?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, Jose, I don't have any work for you. I don't think it's a good idea, because I think if you get money back," this is one of my brothers-in-law, not by blood. He married one of my sisters-in-law, or he hasn't married her, but he had a child with her. And Jose has a huge problem with drinking and coke, and like it's intermittent because he can't afford it. But I'm going, look, if I put $150 US a week in your hands, you're gonna blow up your family. You're the father of my favorite niece, the youngest member of our family at 3 years old. She's an absolute angel. You're supposed to be supporting my sister-in-law. You haven't worked for 2 years. And in the last 2 years, you've had to leave the mountain a half dozen times from restraining orders, or you've been incarcerated for breaking restraining orders. This is my family, right? Then, I mean, it's a big family. Like there's between my brothers and sisters-in-law by blood, my wife's brothers and sisters, there's 10 of them, and then they all have spouses, so there's 20 of them, and then they have kids, and their kids have kids. You get a sense of how big the family is. Now, 85% of the family is really good, but there's this 15% that, they're really bad. And then I got the other brother-in-law I told you about, Stephen. I mean, these people are like relapsers. Like, I mean, you think, oh man, that's amazing. Hey, he hasn't drank for 4 months. That's kind of amazing. Maybe I was being a little hard on him, thinking he needed to go to AA meetings. No, he just didn't have any money. It's like sitting there like one of those worms that sits in the permafrost of Antarctica. And they found one. I was reading about it in the news. A worm that had been in the Antarctic permafrost for 46,000 years came back to life when it was defrosted. It was in a stasis. It was in a hibernation. A 46,000-year-old organism, right? That's what these guys are like with their addictions. They can go into this stasis, but it's just that they don't have money. And so I have to be very careful about how I dole money out here. And then my wife says, well, why don't you just control his salary? And just keep his books and say, okay, you've got $700 US in salary. We're going to the grocery store today. What do you want? Bring them the groceries and show them the receipt and say, okay, we spent $400 of your $700. You have another $300, and just do it that way. Well, his wife, my sister-in-law, she gets money she has 2 adult sons from a previous marriage, and her previous husband was killed, my brother-in-law Gerardo, 5 years ago. In a holdup. He was a great guy. He's my favorite brother-in-law. And she also gets an untimely death pension from the Costa Rican government. Now she and the addict she's with, they live on that. And when that's all the money they have, there's no extra money for him to get into trouble. And my wife says, well, we'll just buy their groceries. I said, well, your idiot sister, my sister-in-law, she's very weak. Like you, I'm saying to my wife, like you, she can't apply discipline. So he'll talk her into giving him money, saying it's for something. He'll go buy some sugarcane liquor. We have this sugarcane. In my experience, the wickedest liquors are always clear. Vodka, tequila, gin. And we have this sugarcane liquor up here that's just deadly. It's 40%. They distill it here in Costa Rica. It's to the best of my knowledge, it's the only liquor that they do in Costa Rica. It tastes like paint thinner, but the Alkies love it because it's super cheap. You can buy a 500 milliliter bottle for about $3 US, and it's the equivalent of 8 beers. It's like 40% proof, right? So they buy a couple of them and they just wander the mountains, sipping it and getting drunk and stumbling around on the roads. And then what happens is when they get drunk, then they decide to buy crack. And then the psychosis comes. And it just goes off the rails faster than a demonic possession. You just cannot believe how fast this happens. You're living with this guy for 3 months. He's been fine for 3 months. And then you see him talking to himself, screaming at the sky, stomping up and down the dirt road on the mountain with a machete, swinging it like this, completely out of his mind. I say, what happened with Jose Andres? To my wife. She goes, you know. I said, he's back on the crack? She said, yeah. Where'd he get the money? I don't know. So I'm not hiring him. Right? So I got to let go of this gringo friend too. Because I'll be a total fucking hypocrite because everybody knows he's a fuck-up alcoholic too. And he's also a sleeper alcoholic. Like he'll be dry for 3 months and then he'll go on a 1-week bender. So I can't hire him because my whole family will turn, oh, well, okay, so apparently Bruce's rules only apply to us Costa Ricans, but he'll hire an American alcoholic. No, I have to be consistent. Just to let you know, just because I live in this little paradise, I'm not outside the chaos of this world. It's everywhere now. I don't think you could avoid it in the Sahara Desert. I don't think the Bedouin tribes are avoiding it right now. It's in the air. It's in the astral, this insanity, this demonic predation, which is another reason you have to stay really, really clean. You have to stay clean. You have to live clean. And you have to keep your spiritual work up. Now, it's like a martial art, and you got to keep it up. And a lot of people out there, they think because they took some seminar or studied something 10 years ago, oh, I'm spiritual. No, it's a daily practice. And if you're not practicing daily, you're not being spiritual. So anyways, that's my show for tonight. I'm Bruce McDonald. This has been the Telemancer Review.